Welcome. This is my first Periscope. I'm very excited to share this with you. I am a award-winning author of 3 novels, and I've been looking forward to giving the chance for aspiring future authors to learn some tips and some resources that will help them. Please feel free to comment, share some hearts, let me know that you're enjoying the broadcast. I'm looking forward to feedback from you with things that you would like to hear that could help you. A couple things that I wanted to share of how this began for me is I am an author, and as I went around to different events, I would run into people and they would share 2 things with me. The first one was that it was one of their lifelong goals that they wanted to be an author, or that they wanted to write a novel. It was something on their bucket list, something they always wanted to do. And then the other thing is that I would often get approached about how they would want me to read their writing, which I enjoy doing. I don't mind doing it. It's just the problem is that when so many people are asking, it becomes overwhelming and it can take away from my own writing. And so the request became enough that I realized that it wasn't going to work for me just to take them on the side and read them, that I needed help. And I also recognized that the time that was spent for an author to give feedback to an aspiring future author could be used to help other authors, other writers. And so I wanted to create that opportunity for writers who wanted some guidance in how to pursue their writing goals. So what I did is I created a website. It began in connection with my 3rd novel, because my 3rd novel has to do with a writing group. It's creative writing students in a 9th grade high school setting. So what I did is I created this website and some authors to help us. So the website is called The Other Side of Quiet, and when we have a session live, we have aspiring writers helping us. So this is the home page right here, but let me show you what we have going on right now. We're going through and reviewing what took place in our first session. We'll have another session that will go live in September, and we'll be looking for feedback from any of you that would help us know what you would like to see in this next session. But what we have here is, and let me see if I can get all of this in for you, and hopefully you can focus. If not, then we'll just go in closer. So what we do is on Monday we have a sample writing. Generally we've had teen writers. We have had some adults, but we like to make sure that teens get a chance, since they're usually at the beginning and they're usually less scared to share. I think when we get older we start to have more fear of what people think, and it hinders us. So our teen writers are a little more receptive to the feedback and more eager to share. Something that I think is very important is this ability to share things online, because as an author, that's what you'll be doing lots of. Certainly when you first start out writing, you want to have family, friends give you feedback, but later you're going to have to expand your reading audience. So this is what we have featured this week. We're going through and doing a review of our first session. Our session began from January and ran through May. So we have a teen writer by the name of Elizabeth that we're featuring this week, and her wonderful title is When Will My Happy Ending Begin? It's a great, great story. What we do is we just allow our writers to provide up to about 6 pages if it was written, so not terribly long. We don't want your whole book, we just want a sample of your writing, and then we let you share, and then we ask that those of you who are familiar with reading, that you're an active reader, that you take a look at these questions and you take a moment to answer them. Share with us what you liked. So consider answering 1 or 2 of these questions, what you really enjoyed about the piece, considering answering what you would recommend as far as feedback for some improvements, and then also just calling out some of the things that you really enjoyed, some overall feelings about the piece. We do this, we call it the sandwich approach, that you start out with some positive feedback, then you give some ideas of some improvements, and then you look for final positive feedback at the end. So you kind of sandwich that, how you can improve in the middle. We're all human, and we all take feedback to heart, especially when it's our writing, because it comes from our heart if it's well written. So we want to be sensitive to that and definitely provide feedback that can help a aspiring author to improve, but also call out the strengths. And I mention that because as we have our guest author who comes in at the end of the week to share feedback on this guest author. So this week we had, when we did this in our session 1, we had Alyssa Bright, who writes historical novels, and she was our guest author that provided author tips for When Will My Happy Ending Begin. So here's just a quick look at her author tips. And one of the things that I really like about how we give feedback on this site is everything is meant to be positive and encouraging. So what we have here is 3 questions that any guest author would answer. First, what they enjoyed. I found that when I was a beginning writer, I knew I wanted to write since I was in 5th grade, and when I was 16 I got the idea for my first novel that came out 10 years later. But I didn't know what I was doing well when I started. It's just such a huge learning curve. It's very overwhelming. And so to have someone who's been in the industry, who's researched it, who's had their own successes come out and say, you know, this is what you're doing well, this is what we enjoy, that says a lot. And so that is a requirement for our guest authors to first provide what they enjoy. Then after that, writing is subjective, and so just because I would do one thing doesn't mean that you necessarily would do the same thing, but it's helpful to have a professional give feedback on what they would do next with the piece. And so we take the question of, if I was the writer of this piece, this is what I would do next. And it's important to realize that we want to focus on rewrites, that it takes a lot to write those first pages, but it's not enough, that we have to go back and look for ways we can improve what we've written. So this is an opportunity for someone who is familiar with rewrites and knows what they do with their own writing to come back and say, this is a great piece, but here's what I would do next to improve it even more. And then the final opportunity for the guest author to give feedback comes in the form of final thoughts about the writing piece. And this is a chance for the guest author to summarize their overall feelings about the writing. And more often than not, we find that these authors want to see this whole book in print, and that's how I feel when I read these. I want to see more of the story. It's kind of frustrating that these are works in progress, but we love seeing these works in progress. We love to give feedback and to help aspiring authors know what they can do next. So this is a site designed to help you in your efforts. Just want to hit a couple fun things that we have going on right now. Our next session will begin in September. Until then, we're reviewing our first session, so that is our writing tips for future authors. You can go and look at our previous sessions, and they will help you to see what was done during session 1. We have editing tips by Alana. Really excited about this. She happens to be a teen, and she provided feedback on my third novel when I went to a classroom, since it takes place in a classroom, and I had several students read and give me feedback from their point of view, and she was so passionate about editing that I later approached her, since we've had a lot of teen writers on the site, and said, what about having a teen editor? So she's been giving us some great tips, and for many of us, editing is a bit daunting. So she starts out with some of the basics, and it's fabulous. So stay tuned for that, because that is just our newest edition. Our first tips actually came out today, and she has a nice list of what's going to be coming, and that's some new content that's on the site for the summer. We also have a summer writing contest, so there will be links up here that you can go to, and I would highly recommend, if you want to participate, get your work out there and receive prizes and some recognition. Take advantage of these summer writing contests. And then finally, we have some stuff that will be coming up in this fall that I can share in a later scope. So I appreciate you taking the time to come and visit my scope. I would love feedback. Let me share with you the writing site. So it is theothersideofquiet.net. Again, the name for this came from my third novel, which is called The Other Side of Quiet, but it was first launched to promote my book, but now it's become its own entity, and we realize that it's to help writers, because when we write, we do break through a barrier that otherwise is quiet, and writing is a very quiet process, but in today's day and age with social media and the ways that we can share like we never could before, we don't need to be quiet. And so I hope that you will take advantage of this and share with us some of your writing. Also, please share with me any comments you might have on Twitter. I would love to hear ideas, suggestions, things you would like to see that would help you in your writing goals. That is my Twitter name, so follow me or share comments at Tara C. Allred. and I appreciate you coming to this broadcast. And also, please recommend, I would love to recommend that you share this with others if you find that this is helpful or you know of anyone who could benefit from this site. Also, please follow me so that I can share future scopes with you.